Hello there, my name is Jeremy Watkins. I am your host on the CARECAST. Thank you for joining me. It's been a while since I've had an episode recorded and posted out here, but there's been a lot of growth and a lot of changes that have taken place in my life personally and professionally. And I think it's going to be reflected in this new season of CARECAST. CARECAST is a podcast for caregivers. It is geared to educate, inspire, and support. So without further ado, I'd like to kick off this new season episode that I titled "The Power of Presence," and I feel like this is a good starting point for this season because it is going to be the launch pad for future episodes in this season of CareCast. So I'd like to talk about the science of presence. And some of the facts that I would like to share is that research shows that patients who feel emotionally connected to their caregivers experience less anxiety, they better adherence to treatment, and even improved physical outcomes. A study in the Journal of General Internal Medicine found that empathy and presence from caregivers improve patient satisfaction and reduce stress. Now, isn't that really what our goals are? You know, to bring a better quality of life to the people we care for, and not just the people we care for, but let's also bring us into the picture. You know, as caregivers, we so think all the time that, you know, we have to give and give and give and give to everyone else, and we seldom take time for ourselves. But I am here to tell you, all the empathy and compassion that you give others, it's okay to give it to yourself. It's okay to let yourself have a better quality of life as well. Of course, there's going to be some stressful situations. You know, every job, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to have stress, okay? And caregiving is no exception to high stress level as far as a job is concerned. It doesn't have to be viewed as a stressful job. Caregiving can be viewed as a very rewarding and imperative need. Yes, there is stress, just like there's stress with anything. Stay-at-home moms have stress, you know. I, as a CEO, have stress. Everyone, everywhere that works with any job that deals with any people has stress. And that's just the nature of the beast, so to speak. So I'd like for you to not only think of the people that you care for while we're going over these topics, but I want you to think about how you can care for yourself in the same way, because you deserve that care as well. You deserve a quality of life, just the way the people that you care for deserve their quality of life. Presence also benefits caregivers. Mindfulness and intentional presence reduce burnout, lowers stress hormones, and increases resilience. And that's pretty much what we just went over. But I'd like to reiterate that this word present, if you're like me, anything that you're doing, your mind is always wandering to something else. You know, when you're driving, you're listening to the radio, you're thinking about the news story that's on the radio, or a song brings up a memory of a past relationship, or, you know, a friend, or, you know, your focus is kind of on driving, but you're not fully present while you're driving. You're not fully there. So this whole mindfulness topic is geared towards helping you stay in the present moment. And how can you do that? There are certain things that can ground us mentally. It can ground our mind and our senses to focus on the here and now. For example, in the mornings, you know, as soon as I wake up, I usually have a million things on my mind that I have to do throughout the day, but I'm not fully present with what I'm doing in that very moment. So what I like to do is ground myself. How I do that is, I make my coffee and I pause. I pick up the cup and I feel the warmth in my hand. And then I put it to my nose and I smell it. And then I taste it. And I make sure I can taste every single flavor that coffee has. The bitterness, the sweetness. All of those things keep you grounded in the present. Okay? Now that's a personal example. How about an example while you're performing tasks? How can you be fully present? Because a lot of times, I know in my experience as a caregiver, when I have been giving care, I've always been either thinking about the next task or the next 5 or 6 tasks that need to be done. Time has fallen short. I'm in a rush. I feel I'm starting to rush myself, so I'm not really being fully present. My client or my loved one is talking to me, but I'm not hearing or listening to them because I'm not present. That's what happens. And that breaks that connection. And that's what presence is all about. It's about connecting in that moment with either yourself or others. And it's vital in this field of caregiving. Presence doesn't mean perfection. It means being fully engaged in that moment, even if it's just for a few minutes. So it doesn't have to be this long period of time where you become unpresent by trying to focus on how to be present. I heard this saying a long time ago. I go to church and the pastor was talking about thinking about the things of heaven. But then he said, don't be so heavenly minded that you're no earthly good. Now, yes, thinking of good things is a good thing. Is it deactivating you? Is it diminishing your presence in that moment and making you, quote unquote, no earthly good? So this is what I'm talking about. And this whole season of CARECAST is going to be centered around this word, presence. Presence is going to be the fulcrum of the improvement in the caregiving industry. It's going to be the fulcrum of the improvement in your personal life, in your profession. It's literally going to save so much time, so much effort, so much aggravation just by simply being present. And we've talked about being in task mode and, making sure the boxes are checked, and all of that is good. Go a little bit further and give an example of giving someone a meal isn't just about nutrition. This is a big one. In my experience in caregiving, there is meal preparation. You have to cook the food and then serve the food. But that does not complete your task. In my mind, your meal preparation task is complete when you sit down with that person and you connect with them. You're present with them. How many of you enjoy eating by yourself? How many of you know that you have visitors in the home, but you're eating by yourself? How does that make you feel? Okay, that's how our clients and that's how our loved ones feel when we are completing tasks and not connecting. Yeah, we did what we were supposed to do. We made a nutritious meal and served it to them, but now we got to go do laundry. No, your task is not complete because you're not connecting with that person. It's all about connection and being present. That person will enjoy that meal so much more having your company. Just to tell you a story, I remember visiting an elderly neighbor years ago. She needed help with some small things, just tidying up, making tea. Well, one day I was just rushing and, trying to get through my to-do list, the things that she needed to do. And she stopped me and she said, "Jeremy, just sit with me for a moment." I was perplexed. Gosh, there's so many things I got to do, but okay, let's just add one more. And now I've got to sit with you. So I sat. We didn't talk much. We just really kind of just listened to the clock and the birds outside. And later, before I left, she told me that was the best part of her week. It wasn't the tea. It wasn't the chores that I was completing for her, but it was the moment of us being together. That taught me something, that sometimes the greatest gift we can give isn't what we do, but how we are. So I'd like to end this episode by offering you some takeaways. I'd like to ask you to choose one caregiving task this week and practice being fully present during that task. For example, if you're brushing hair, if you're performing personal care, focus on that task and ask questions. Don't think about the laundry. Don't think about tomorrow's doctor's appointment. Just focus on the moment, the rhythm, the comfort, the connection. And then I want to encourage you to reflect on how did it make you feel? Did it change the way your client or your loved one responded to you? Did it change how they felt? How did it affect them? How did your presence and your connection in that moment, how did it affect them and how did it affect you? I'd like to remind you that caregiving is not just about tasks. It's about presence and dignity and love. I'd like to encourage you to see yourselves not only as caregivers, but as companions on someone's journey. And I would also like to end with, your presence matters. Even when you feel like you're not doing enough, remember, your being there is often the most healing gift of all.